As a mom, I want my kids to understand that it's a big world out there. I want them to develop empathy and caring. I want to show them how to be proactive in making a difference in the lives of other kids in the world. And that's one of the reasons I'm so thankful to sponsor a beautiful little boy in Uganda with Compassion International. For a little over $1 a day, he's receiving physical, educational, and spiritual care. And for the kids I'm raising, they can see the difference it's making in his life through the letters he sends us and the pictures we get to see. For me as a mom, it's a win-win, and it's something you can do for your kids too. To give your kids the world, go to compassion.com/AllMomDoes. Welcome to the Modern Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Lyles Carr, and today I'm so excited to welcome Kevin and Sam Sorbo. They are a dynamic duo. They are married. They have 3 gorgeous kids, and they have written and produced a film together, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that. So welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
So give us a little background. How long have y'all been married?
We celebrated 20 years in January.
We did. We met on the set of Hercules about a year and a half before we got married. She came down. I lived in New Zealand 7 years. That's why I shot the series. And she came down as played a princess.
I played a princess.
And I was hitting on her right away.
Smart man.
Wasted no time.
Celebrated 20. We think we're going to keep it up for a little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
A little longer. All right. Now, were y'all already both deep in your faith? Did you already have relationships with the Lord when you met, or was that something that began to sort out once you became a couple?
I've been a Christian my whole life. So Sam's got a little different story, but she was a Christian when I met her.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, that's great to hear. So you spent a lot of time in Hollywood or New Zealand doing Hollywood kind of things in film and television. What is that experience like for people of faith? Because, you kind of hear the whole gamut from, it's absolutely Sodom and Gomorrah to all the way to discovering that, wow, there's really been an upsurge in production of films that are inspirational. So where do y'all see the current landscape when it comes to film, television, and faith?
So on Kevin's show, he was in New Zealand, so he was a little bit sequestered from Hollywood per se. That would have been a different experience for him. But I notice more and more, there's a very secular messaging that's coming out of Hollywood. And that's partly why we decided to do this film. And strangely enough, when the film launched, we got the whole dredging of Hollywood with the Harvey Weinstein thing and then #MeToo and all of this. What I think as Americans, we have to realize that our culture, our Judeo-Christian heritage is being forfeited while we embrace this more secular turn. And so Kevin and I, we're Christians. We practice our Christian faith. I'm raising Christian children. And I thought, what would it be like for an atheist to be challenged in his faith the way that my children are being challenged by the culture every day in their beliefs? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, this is actually a movie that I would want to see. And so I wrote Let There Be Light. I called Dan Gordon, who's a very well-known film writer, and asked him to join me on the project. And he agreed to, because it's really an intrinsically human story. So you're writing real humanity, real emotions.
And he put a little bit of his own story in the story as well.
It's autobiographical for him, a lot of it. And I think that's why it appealed to him. He's like, wow, I get that. Within 2 weeks of his agreeing to write the movie with me, it got funded completely out of the blue.
That's amazing.
So I just took that as a sign of approval from the powers that be. And I'm very proud of this movie. I'm proud that it's kind of making a stand for why we believe what we believe.
So you work together on Let There Be Light. So you both helped produce it, and Sam, you helped write it, and you and Kevin both act in it. And you actually play a divorced couple in the film. What was the experience like for y'all trying to creatively get this thing done and work together on this film?
Well, Kevin directed it, so he was directing me as an actress, and as a producer, I was kind of his boss. You know what? We get along really well. We very much see eye to eye. When we don't agree on something, we tend to find a compromise. We're not that into fighting.
We had a great crew. We shot down in Birmingham, Alabama. We used a lot of what the Irwin brothers used. The whole crew was amazing. I mean, I'm very smart when it comes to directing. I started directing back in my Hercules years to make sure I hire people that know their jobs better than I do. I don't expect to know the set designer's job or the DP's job or the camera operator's job. So I can tell them what I'm looking for, but I'm always open to suggestions. I'm not a dictator on the set. It's a creative process to begin with. and I have an idea how I want to shoot a scene. But when you get on the set and the actors get there, and you're hearing the words spoke for the first time by those actors, different things happen. And I'm always open to different things. I don't want to come in there and say, no, you have to stand here, you have to act this way. I hire actors because they're good. Yeah, discovery's great.
That takes place, the creative discovery.
Yeah.
And do you find, because you are doing something that is faith-based, that is about relationship and leaning into God, do you find sometimes that things show up in that discovery process that you go, okay, wow, that was an even better idea than what we were thinking of?
Oh, yeah. I think that happens all the time.
Absolutely.
Sure. I mean,
we faced a couple of hurdles during the production that I wouldn't wish on anybody, but they turned out to be great things, in the end. So, yeah.
Yeah, things happen, especially when you have a movie that has a limited budget on it. We're a small independent film. And you don't have the luxury of shooting an Avengers movie where they say, well, if it's $250 or $270 million, we'll work it out. They don't worry about it. So, and they have $100 million to promote it. We don't have $100 million. I mean, our budget, we shot that movie for about $2.4 million. That's catering on something like Spider-Man. So it really, movies like this, they rely on word of mouth, and we need that word of mouth to make it work.
Right. So what was it like playing a divorced couple? Because that's kind of an interesting take on things. If you're a married couple coming to the set and then you get on set and you're supposed to be divorced, what was that like?
He'll say it was a fantasy come true.
It was. You know what it is? It's a great question because I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I look at it as an actor. I look at the script and I see what's there. So I don't think about, well, I'm really married to her. How is this going to be? I don't even think of that. And I'm sure there are actors that do think of that are really method or whatever else. To me, it's like, this is it. We've been divorced for 8 years. We got 2 kids. 1 kid died 8 years ago. I never had a faith. She always had a faith. I can't say it was a huge friction between us. I think there was playful sarcasm both ways with them. But it was really the straw that broke the camel back with him was the death of his 8-year-old son, his oldest son at that time. So for him, which is very typical because I met atheists, I have atheist friends, but I met atheists that felt that way, that why would God let something like this happen if there is a God? So it pushed him to be even more angry at something he didn't believe in. Because atheism is a religion unto itself, and they have a stronger faith than we as Christians have. Think about it.
A lot of times, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was telling Kevin previous to hitting the record button that my dad actually was a literal rocket scientist. He worked on the space shuttle program. He was immersed in the science culture, and he, for a very long time, went through a strong wrestling of faith. And I don't know if he ever would have classified himself as an atheist, but maybe more of a varsity level agnostic. He was kind of leaving the door open mathematically, maybe for something else to come along. And part of his story was when he went into an illness that science could not define and could not heal. It became this very interesting wrestling with God. And so there were so many things in watching the story of Saul Harkins, who is the main character in the film Let There Be Light, and his wrestling. And so what was the genesis of this story for you? And how did you prepare for the role? Since you're a person of faith, since you identify that I've been a Christian my whole life, how did you prepare to play someone who doesn't have that place of belief in God, or is reacting and responding out of a deep anger toward an entity that he doesn't really want to believe in, but he's real mad?
You know what it is? It's Sam and Dan wrote an amazing script. I know people like that. I've seen people like that on TV. I've seen people like on Fox Cable or CNN where they spend so much time in anger over something they don't believe in. They have clubs, they have parties, they have get-togethers. And I'm going, wow, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of money and time wasted and energy wasted on something you don't believe in. I should care if somebody's an atheist, but I'll talk to them if they want to talk about it. But I don't go out of my way saying, I'm going to go out and talk to atheists today. And maybe that's something as a Christian I should do, but I don't. But if I meet them and people want to bring it up, I'm more than happy to talk about it. 90% of the people that email me, and every time I post something, I get anywhere from 50,000 to 1 million responses. I don't have time to read them, and I look occasionally at 1 or 2, but I'm going to post what I believe. I'm hoping this movie changes the world to some degree, because now we live in a world that's so angry and so divisive and so little hate, and the people are just, it's so racist again in this country. And never were at that level. We're back in the 60s for crying out loud. So I'm hoping a movie like this brings hope, brings redemption, shows love, shows faith, shows that there's more positive things out there in your life, and spending so much time just hating everybody and anything that disagrees with you.
What do you think are some of the most important questions that you were seeking to ask through this medium of film? Were there some real points that you felt like, boy, I hope this helps give and resource some answers for somebody out there?
Forgiveness. I think that's a quality that we really struggle with in this country today. We are so unforgiving. And the problem with that is there are a few different levels of forgiveness, and one of them is forgiveness of self. And if you can't forgive yourself, you can't forgive anybody, and vice versa, frankly. And we all struggle with forgiveness. But part of it is admitting to ourselves that we are also failures, that we also need forgiveness, that we need to ask for forgiveness. And that's one of the themes in the movie, that Saul has to ask for forgiveness at some point and understand that he's culpable, that he's done something to hurt people, to disserve people, and he has to come to grips with that. And so what I'm hoping is that people identify with one or more characters in the film, just identify on the level of humanity with the film characters, and understand that they need forgiveness and that they want forgiveness, and that they should ask for forgiveness as a way of offering, as a way of being able, of enabling themselves to offer forgiveness. Because if you cannot forgive, you're carrying an increasingly heavy burden. I think that it's part of the stress that we carry in society today. It's part of the opioid crisis that we face today, where people are seeking any way out except the hard way, which is the forgiveness way, which is the acknowledgement way, right?
You know what's interesting is the emails would come pouring in weren't just coming from people that were fans of me or fans of Sam or fans of the movie, whatever it may be. But I got emails from the Christian world where your movie wasn't Christian enough, or your movie was too Christian. And I've got atheist friends, and I can't disagree with them sometimes when I say, the problem they have with religion is that we're supposed to be the most forgiving, and yet a lot of times we're the least forgiving. You make one mistake, and boy, you're out, and that you're out of the club, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, it's in the Bible, right? Don't look at the splinter in my eye. Look at the log in your own. It was interesting for me to get some of these letters I got from people that said, well, you had that one scene in that movie that I couldn't believe you did that. You're looking at a 90-minute movie. You're taking 1 3-minute segment and you're writing off the movie. And it's like, wow, you just can't please everyone, because we live in a time now where everybody wants to be offended by something and everybody wants to be critical of everything. This is a movie it's positive. No movie's perfect. I can pick apart every single movie I've ever seen in my life. Movie's perfect. But our movie's perfect, yeah. But it's just, it gets frustrating at times where you sit there and you go, you're like a referee in a basketball game. You call a foul on somebody. Half the audience watching that game goes, great call. The other half goes, that was horrible. He didn't get touched, So it's like, you can't win, and I realize that. But, we're trying to put out movies that have a positive moral message to them, that have hope written all over them, instead of all the negative stuff coming out in television and movies today that promote violence, promote sexuality. I'm hardly a prude. She's a prude. I'm hardly a prude. But I sit there and laugh at the hypocrisy of Hollywood, even in like the gun issue now with yet another shooting going on. And I look and I go, okay, all of you, especially you male actors out there, you superlist A-list actors that are after this thing now to get rid of the guns, blah, blah, blah. And yet they're in every movie they're in has violence, and they're killing 100 people in a movie. Then stop doing those movies. Do something else. Do something else with a positive message instead of saying one thing and then living your life a different way. It's so hypocritical.
I do think that one of the things that people of faith should be consistently bringing to the table, whether it's in entertainment or as thought leaders or wherever God has called someone to serve in those ways, particularly if they have a bigger platform, is to bring a continuity. I think that we have somehow missed that because we don't bring a continuity in our private lives to our public lives. We have different positions that seem to contradict each other. Exactly as you were saying. It was one of the things that I actually liked in Saul Harkins' opening. It's supposed to be a debate, but you have this amazing soliloquy that you give at the beginning as an atheist that really there are things that even as a person of faith, I was like, yeah, I understand why somebody would ask that. Yeah, I can understand somebody's point in that, why they would resist faith, if not just the experience that the character of Saul has, but some of the different things that he's talking about. And, one of the things that he posits is we just need to party on. If we would just party on and people were just having a good time, we could end a lot of warfare. And in that, there's kind of this sense of, really, if we would just drop some of the judgment and some of the unforgiveness and some of the finger pointing and focus on the beauty of life. What if we, as people of faith, were the people saying, hey, let's focus on what's good and pure and lovely instead of all the negative. What a difference that might make. What do you think people of faith how should they be impacting the film and television industry? Because there are those people who would say, well, they should make sure that these words are never used, or that kind of scene or that kind of romance never enters that film industry. The cacophony of modern entertainment seems so loud, but we're seeing this hunger for inspirational films. So how do we harness the power of entertainment without becoming a victim to it?
You know, Kevin talks a lot about how people need to support good Christian filmmaking. And so one thing that I do, and I do it for my kids too, I read a lot of movie reviews. I don't go to movies just sort of willy-nilly. To get me to the movie theater, it has to be a movie that I've read a lot about, that I've read differing opinions about, that I know that it's something that I really want to see. And Christians can be that discerning with their entertainment and supportive of the entertainment that supports their values. It's really quite simple. It doesn't get more complicated than that. I will say, you know, a small movie like this, we need that support because we can't make it against the big blockbusters. I mean, we were very blessed. We went up against Thor in the movie theaters, and we had the second highest grossing theatrical
per screen average. Yeah.
But that was, you know, with the great big push with Sean Hannity behind us and all that. Most little films don't even have that much, and we had a very low budget for promoting the movie. We need to get the churches engaged in promoting good, solid storytelling. Look, Jesus spoke in parables. He was a storyteller. And the reason is because stories move the world. Otherwise, why would he bother putting everything into these parables, into these sort of parallel stories to the spiritual realm, if it wasn't because they transcend time and they transcend into our culture, into our world? So that's what we're trying to emulate here. And we need disciples. We need to make disciples and make more storytellers so that we can share what we term as the light.
I'm going to go back a little bit to what you mentioned earlier, my opening soliloquy.
Yeah.
You only saw half of it. We actually cut 50% of that out because we wanted to keep the movie going.
Yeah.
But I thought, what a brilliant way to start a movie that even made Christians go, well, he's got a point. It's interesting for a faith-based movie to do that because most of them don't do it that way. So you hear his arguments.
Right.
And you kind of go, okay, I understand how people get to that point in their life of not believing in something.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how we promote the unity in humanity, the unity that exists, that we are all God's creatures, even people who don't believe in their creator.
And,
right?
you know, I want to make these movies. I don't want to preach to the choir, though. I want the choir to show up and support it.
Right.
But I do want to reach across that aisle. I want to reach those independent voters as agnostics and reach across to the agnostics over there. I mean, the atheists over there, and say, you know, here's some food for thought. And I get that in the emails I get from people that are atheists. They say, look, I'm a fan of you. I like your Andromeda. I like your Hercules. I like some of your movies. I don't agree with you on these movies, but, you know, they were interesting. And at least to me, it made me think. And that's really all I want to do is reach out there. But I get stopped all the time from people saying, please make more movies like this. But then we're trying to. Yeah. But please support these movies.
Go buy the DVD.
Go buy the DVD.
Get one for a friend.
Really.
Right.
Go do. And can we throw on Faith Films Network?
Yes, so we're offering the film as a church outreach. So you go to faithfilmsnetwork.com, or you can go to lettherebelightmovie.com also, and you can sign up to bring the film to your church for free, and then the church charges entrance and keeps some of that as profits just to the church. So you can use it as a fundraiser, and it's free. So there's no actual investment.
So fill up your churches, and then when you leave, go to Best Buy, go to Walmart, go to Amazon, and buy one for a friend who needs to see this movie. It's really important.
And, you know, going back to that soliloquy, part of what I really liked is the fact that I found Saul to be a more sympathetic character than the guy he was debating against. You know, Saul was the guy I was relating more to, and I think it takes courage to present that point of view first instead of kind of hitting that preaching to the choir. I really appreciated that in those opening scenes.
You look at the way we opened it with a rap Christian song with Dionne Warwick singing the title track, and the visual images of the anger and the hatred out there, and the taking down of the terrorist attacks of New York City. I mean,
Boston.
In Boston. I mean, it was
there's a lot of hatred out there,
and we wanted to show that. And we brought up ISIS, we brought up things like that, but it was also really about this man's journey to find redemption again and find a love that he was missing in his life through his ex-wife and through his children, which he really wasn't a very good father. And it was his journey.
in his journey. So what does the creative process look like for y'all? When you begin to have an idea, begin to germinate, when you start thinking about writing, when you start about how you want to embody this character, what is that creative process? What kind of, journey?
She has the answer to that. She's the one. I wrote one episode of Hercules. I said, I'll never write again. It's too hard. But I'll let you talk about what she did.
So I came up with the idea, and I think I came into your office and said, I have this great idea for a movie. And he said, that's nice, dear.
I'm busy. Go right.
We collaborate really well. The script really germinated from my ideas, and then I went to Dan, and Dan and I developed the script together, and Dan put in so much of his own life that just resonated. It was just perfect for this whole storytelling.
Well, that opening monologue was written pretty much by Dan.
Yeah, just amazing.
And that came from, he has 3 boys, and they were in a horrific car crash, and he lost one of his sons. And he spent the next year railing against God and drinking and just kill me, go ahead and take me, not my son. So it was very emotional for him. For me, it was an amazing scene, and I know it was cathartic for him. It helped him a lot to get all this out, and it was very touching. It was the way he told us his story privately, and he's not really that private about it. People know about it. He talks about it, and he actually raised the money for film school, Liberty University. Thank you. So they have like an $80 million film school there at Liberty, and it's named after his son.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of emotion in this movie. It's really an emotional roller coaster. That's why it resonates with people. And people in theaters, they applauded at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then they sat through the entire credit roll, which I don't know the last time that I was in a theater where that happened. And then as they are leaving the theater, they talk to complete strangers.
Well, I got to tell you, I got to throw another thing for Dan Gordon. Here's a guy who's up for an Academy Award for Original Screenplay. He wrote The Hurricane with Denzel Washington. He wrote White Earp, my favorite Western, with Kevin Costner. He was a showrunner and head writer on Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon.
Yeah.
And he's Jewish. He's a practicing Jewish man. And he said the only way to save America and save the world is through Jesus.
Wow. Wow.
It's amazing.
That's incredible. And, it makes me think of something. I know as actors, and here you're taking this thing that you've worked so hard on. I mean, what a place of vulnerability to extend it out there and to say, okay, here it is. Here's a performance. Here's a very personal story on the part of Dan Gordon that he's willing to use and leverage to reach people's hearts. And yet, there's going to be blowback, there's going to be critics, there's going to be people who don't understand what you're trying to do. But when I look at that, I think, but wow, isn't that often the Christian life in general, that we want to stay in a place of vulnerability, of not becoming jaded by the world, and yet we also have to be aware the world's not always going to understand what we're trying to do. So how do you stay in that place of being vulnerable, staying creative, being willing to use personal story, and yet still staying supple? Because I think it can become, a little bit easier to become brittle and guarded and not, let anybody through anymore just because the way our world is.
Well, number one, we moved 40 miles north of Hollywood.
There you go. That fixes everything.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I would say you need to make a choice to stand for your beliefs, and so we made that commitment. Was it like 8 or 9 years ago?
Yeah, she warned me. She said Hollywood is going to turn its back on you, and they did. I mean, they call for tolerance, they call for freedom of speech, but it's a one-way street with them. But thank God for the independent film market, because I keep working. Look, Hollywood owes me nothing. I just feel sad that we can't just all get along. Like I said, I don't get so angry at people having a different point of view of me or a different religious belief than me. I don't have a problem with that. Why can't we still just talk about it and still work together and be professional? But it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of having conviction. And honestly, in today's culture, we so seldom see strong conviction. But somebody who is strongly convicted gets noticed, gets attention, is attractive. It's attractive to see somebody who's very firm in their beliefs, whether you agree with them or not. You're like, wow, this person really thinks they know what they know, So that's what I find is I have to be true to my convictions, and I can't betray them, because I can't go to sleep at night if I don't stand up for what I believe.
We'll be right back with our conversation with Kevin and Sam Sorbo. And first, I do want to make sure that you're getting connected in community with other women who help you feel inspired and encouraged and equipped. And one of the best ways to do that is through MOPS. Here are just a few of the many stories we hear every year about lives changed through the communities of moms involved in MOPS international groups. Families, churches, and communities are changed through MOPS. Our MOPS leadership team was intentional about praying for moms in our group and helping them move one step closer to Jesus. Our first meeting of the year had more than 60 moms in attendance when our average the previous year was 35. At least half of the moms did not attend church and did not have a relationship with Christ. At every leadership meeting, we prayed for the moms by name. After building relationships all year, we offered a summer Bible study to introduce the basics of faith. We had 19 moms sign up. We know that because we focused on relationships throughout the year, these women felt comfortable coming to the class and asking their questions. As a result of the class, we had 2 moms accept Christ for the first time and 2 that are on their way and continuing to ask questions. One of the moms who accepted Christ sent this to me after the class was over. You have impacted my life more than you'll ever know, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. There's a whole new, fresh layer on top of the world I thought I knew. God is an absolute wonder. I simply can't imagine life without him. We can't wait to see what God will do next year. From Gretchen in Florida. So 2 of the kids of your 3 are in the film, Let There Be Light? Okay.
We homeschool. I should say Sam homeschools. And they grew up in movie sets. I've shot over 50 movies in the last 11 years. Yeah. And they're 16, almost 14, and 12. So they've grown up in movie sets. They're not intimidated by being around all the cameras, and they've been taking acting class the last 3 years. And, when the parts came up, once again, Dan Gordon said, use your own kids. We auditioned them. And I said, okay, you guys, if I don't feel you can do this, I'm not going to give you the part because this isn't my money we're playing with. So you got to come through. And they came through with shining colors. And that before the first week was out, the crew's walking up to me saying, you better pick it up, pal. Your kids are acting you off the page. So they did a great job. And they actually are the comedic relief of the movie as well.
Yeah.
They were great. And what would you say to them if they said, okay, Mom and Dad, you've had us on these 50 different sets through the years. We got to be in Let There Be Light. We're thinking that might be what we want to chase. What would be your best advice to them now, both as parents and as professionals who've been in the industry and as Christians?
Well, my oldest boy has already said that. Yeah. He wants to go into acting. He wants to go to college, but he also wants to be an actor. I
wouldn't wish that on anyone, but here they are.
Basically, I think it's important to follow your dreams. He's got very strong convictions. That's going to be troublesome for him in an industry that almost you insist that you abandon your convictions in a sense. So it's an uphill road for him.
He may have to change his last name.
Can you tell I'm not smiling anymore?
And for any parent who has a child who seems to want to chase something of a more public platform in today's culture, what are your thoughts about how to best guide those kids?
Well, here's the thing. It's important that we have these people engaging in the culture. It's very important to engage the culture as well. And so I encourage him. I love the fact he goes on games, he plays games, and he evangelizes while he's gaming with people.
While he's on Xbox.
What are your thoughts about God? Oh, dude, I don't believe in God. Really? Why not? So I encourage that. And we have people who reach out to us because their son or their nephew or somebody they know wants to move to Hollywood to become an actor or become a stage manager or, do something in the industry. And that's great. We need to encourage those people to enter the industry. At the same time, they're called to abandon their beliefs, and it's a dangerous area for especially young people who may not be as convicted as they seem or whatever. So, you have to be very careful. But I also believe in providence. I believe in right things happening, that God works all things together for good. So I wouldn't discourage somebody. I was discouraged from pursuing acting. I was told that I would never make it.
They said to everyone.
I was too tall and there wasn't any hope. And so I didn't. So I went to college thinking that I was going to become a doctor. And then strangely, I started modeling and I went, wait a minute, if I can model, why can't I act? Like what's wrong with that, equation? At the same time, I'll tell you a quick story I put it at the beginning of my book, They're Your Kids. I was on a photo shoot, and the hairdresser came up to me and he said, "Don't drink the punch." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Don't drink the punch. No, we spike it with ecstasy. We want to get the stylist high, but I know you don't do drugs." Now, I don't know how he knew that I didn't do drugs, but he knew. Mm-hmm. He just knew. And so he protected me. So I do believe in a little bit of a providential kind of covering on young people. So I don't know. It's a hairy road to hoe. It's tough, but I also want to encourage it because we need more Christians in the marketplace.
So you've birthed Let There Be Light. We had it in major theater releases. Now it's available by DVD. So what's the next baby? What are we working on next?
Well, we have two different projects that we're working on. Both of them are faith-based, strongly faith-based. And so we're excited about that. We can't say more because, we're still sort of in the throes of, getting.
Well, we've had the success of Let There Be Light got us into Netflix. We had a couple meetings with them with their theatrical and their television departments. So we'll see what happens there to bring them down that road, hopefully. Because, there's 70, 80 million people out there that want the next Highway to Heaven type TV series. They want movies that have a great message. And we've got a couple of really wonderful television events and movies. I've read over 200 scripts over the last 5-6 years. I've whittled it down to my top 10 that we're trying to raise money for. The toughest thing is raising money. So if there's anybody out there looking to make movies, come talk to us. Go to kevinsorbo.net. That's where you got to go.
That's what it comes down to.
Does,
a couple of years ago, I developed a faith-based TV show because I thought, we haven't had one for a while. It's about time, and it's something that I would like to see on TV. And we got it all the way into NBC and Sony, yep. sold the show, yep. And then they shelved it because they don't understand the need. They see that there is a desire, but they don't really understand the desire. And so we just have to keep pounding down those doors, and we'll get there.
We'll definitely get there. I've got a movie that just premiered at the NRB in Nashville recently called One Nation Under God, and that deals with bringing that phrase back into the Pledge of Allegiance. So that'll be out in theaters soon. And we just finished a movie again together that's called Bernie the Dolphin, very nice family movie with dealing with dolphins. And that'll be out in December.
Yeah. Awesome. It sounds like to me we always have an election cycle going on as people of faith. When it comes to the entertainment world, we can always vote with our dollar, where we're spending our money on what we're saying yep. is the entertainment that we want to see and we're willing to invest in. So thank you for your work in storytelling in places of inspiration and talking about hard topics and talking about things that can keep us from understanding faith. Such a powerful gift that you both have. Thank you so much for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
You can find out more about what's going on with Kevin and Sam and all of their cinematic journeys that they're on. You can go to kevinsorbo.net. And hey, their new film, Let There Be Light, it is out now. You can find it on DVD and on several of the film streaming services, so be sure and check that out as well. Let There Be Light. I would love to connect with you myself at julielylescarr.com and on all socials, and that's Julie Lyles Carr on those as well. Be sure and check out AllMomDoes. Fantastic writers, contributors, all in those phases of life for women where they are parenting and being married and working and making choices to stay home. All of those things, all kinds of encouragement and inspiration for right where you are in your journey as a woman. And a big shout out to Donna Toti and Rebecca Beckett. They are team members for the Modern Motherhood Podcast, our producer and our content coordinator. And you know what? They are also such great friends. They have such an excitement and a passion about bringing you content that really helps you in your life. And so Donna and Rebecca, so grateful for you. Coming up next week, have you been seeing turquoise picnic tables pop up in your community? I've got the gal who inspired all of that. We've got Kristen Schell of the Turquoise Table, and this is a conversation you don't want to miss. I'll see you next time on the Modern Motherhood Podcast.